Warning, spoilers, I think. This series takes place 10 years before the original series. The first episode follows Starfleet's first run-in with the Klingons in over 100 years. Don't worry, that's not a spoiler since, well, it got spoiled within the first 5 minutes of the episode. The main focus of the series seems to be on First Officer Michael Berman. It seems we are going to see her rise to being captain in this series. If that's the case, then what's going to happen to Michelle Yeoh's character, Captain Philippia Georgiou? The show begins with a group of aliens speaking in subtitles. They're discussing battle, but then they mention peace, which is a bit odd when you consider that these are supposed to be Klingons. After that, we get a scene where the captain and the first officer are having a walkabout on a desert planet to solve an immediate problem the inhabitants are having, as well as them discussing about her taking up a new command soon. This scene is important because it displays the relationship of the two. First Officer Michael Berman has the book intelligence to do the job effectively, but Captain Philippia has that as well as actual experience and knowledge and knowing the strengths and weaknesses of her staff, as well as being able to think on the fly. It does seem as well that they have a more personal relationship. Not really a mother-daughter, more a mentor-student. When they get back onto the ship, they find an odd object lurking around in space, and this leads to a discovery possibly 100 years in the making. Usually when a new movie, comic book, or TV show about a franchise I like is about to come out, I delve all into the material surrounding it. I decided to do the opposite here, mainly because not much has been revealed about Star Trek Discovery up until the last couple of months, as well as partially because this show was supposed to have come out about a year ago, and I signed on to the CBS Online paid service and nothing came of it. So I canceled the service and decided to watch the pilot. If it's any good, then I'll get the service back so I can watch the rest of the season. I do like the look of the show. For the first 8 minutes when the captain and the first officer are on the desert planet, the show had a very theatrical movie level feel to it. After that, while the episode didn't stay at that level, it was close. It definitely is the best looking TV series I've ever seen, which makes sense seeing as each episode is rumored to be about $8 billion an episode. Of the two main characters, my favorite is Michelle Yeoh. Her captain has a feeling of relaxed gravitas to her, if that makes any sense. She's personable and highly observant of whatever situation she's in. She comes off as a different character as the previous captains in the series. Good job there, CBS. Now, First Officer Michael Berman is interesting because at first I thought she was a Vulcan. We find out that's not true, but she was raised by one of them who has a very strong tie to the original series. Throughout the episode, we see her struggle between balancing her logical Vulcan training versus her human emotions. As far as negatives, this show isn't real new viewer friendly. If you don't know anything about the Star Trek universe, I can see you being a bit lost on this. I'm a fan of Star Trek and it took me a moment to get a handle on this story. Also, Michelle Yeoh is being billed here as a special guest star. That says to me that she's probably gonna die in about an episode or two. I was really hoping that she would be the main character like Cisco, Picard, Janeway, or Kirk. I just don't think the First Officer Michael Berman is strong enough to lead the series yet, despite the amount of attention that she's been given in this episode. Another problem is the lack of depth to the rest of the cast. The only character that gets any real time is Doug Jones's character. We see part of Michael's backstory via flashback, but his backstory is done via exposition. It would have been nice if we actually saw some of his history visually. Also, I didn't like the fact that the captain just let First Officer Berman get away with way too much and kept referring to her. I did have some questions after I saw this. 1. Why do the Klingons look so different? I know the Klingons' look has changed over the years, but this group looks totally different than the ones that first appeared at the beginning of the original series. If the Klingons are the main threat in this series, then I hope the show will take time to focus on multiple characters of that race and culture as well, because from what I saw at the beginning and various parts of this episode, there's a lot there that can be delved into. The ship appears in the opening segment, but then it's gone for the rest of the episode. Where is it? Why isn't the crew using the ship instead of that space station? It can't be about size, right? The crew were monitoring the situation in space from a far away enough distance that shouldn't have been an issue. Are we gonna find out why the Klingons look so different from when they appear in this episode to the beginning of the series? I remember Worf and DS9 making a comedic throwaway line about not wanting to talk about that drastic change. Doesn't this mess with continuity a bit? Putting aside the Klingon visual evolution, did the showrunners consider how First Officer's relation to a certain character from the original series doesn't make any sense? If she existed, then where is she in the original series? Why isn't she spoken of or in any of the original Star Trek movies? I don't think they really thought this through. Another thing, when are we going to learn more about the supporting cast? With the exception of the First Officer and the Captain and Doug Jones's character, I didn't get any idea of anyone else in the cast. Of course, this is because the first episode is Michael based. Hopefully her character won't overshadow everyone else in future episodes. Was releasing this show now a good thing? While Star Trek Beyond was critically well received, it didn't make a profit. It cost $185 million to make and made only $343.5 million. And Hollywood Math says a film needs to make over 2.5 times its production budget in order to make a profit, meaning it had to make more than $410 million in order to be in the black. The new fans of the reboot films don't seem to be going back to watch any of the previous films or TV series, so they wouldn't be the primary demo for this show. As for the fans of the previous text series, would they really be interested in another prequel? Enterprise disenfranchised a lot of fans and hurt the fandom. That being said, I do recommend this, just not enough to buy into the online service again. It looks good visually and the story setup is interesting, but the way it's coming off is it seems like the Klingons will be the main threat for at least the first season. That could work, but unless more characters, both human and Klingon, get more focus on them, then most of the season is just going to come off as padding. Also, I hope there will be more discovery in the series, and if they do that, hopefully it won't feel like they're stretching out the series too much. Finally, I hope this will actually be an ensemble piece and not just focus on one character mostly. Based on the trailers before the series came out and what happens in this episode, I don't understand how First Officer Michael will regain everyone's trust enough for her to get her own ship from Starfleet and become a great leader. Hopefully the writers haven't written themselves into a corner. That reminds me, just who co-wrote and co-storied this episode? Alex Kurtzman and Akiva Goldsman? Oh boy.